Well, here we are, the Bowmen. So, Caleb, what's that hat you have on there? Can't see it.
Loophole, loophole,
Loophole, best
loophole
optics in the
option.
world, man.
Amen, brother.
I have that on my long range gun, my sniper rifle, two of my hunting rifles, the only optics I use. Except I can't afford their range finders and their binoculars, so I only use them for scopes. That's about it.
I have one
No,
on my slingshot.
they're
You have
yeah,
one on your slingshot?
they're great glass, man. I can't. I had vortexes before my loopholes, and I can't honestly say there's a giant difference, but I don't know. I just think loopholes feel like they're built pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I like them. They're cool.
Yeah, my cousin does long range competition shooting, and that's the only glass he uses is loophole. I mean, you get up into the top series are pretty expensive, uh, but that's the only thing he trusts. So
Yeah, my spotting scope's loophole too, and I mean Cedric's looked through it. It's pretty nice. I mean, the only bad thing about the spotting scope is the glass is so clear that if there's any amount of dust or haze or anything in the air, it picks it all up. So
really,
it doesn't
Yeah.
really cut through very well. So like when we were spotting turkeys, we had a couple trucks drive by on the gravel road and it just stuck there. Like there was
yeah,
nothing you could do about it. It kind of sucked. But other than that, I mean, they're good glass. I don't really have a whole lot of experience with spotting scopes. I've always just used binos, but I got a pair of the BX5 12 by 50s, and man, they are like they're legit.
yeah. I'm sure
They're,
they're good.
yeah, they're super nice. They
You guys,
should be because they're expensive.
you guys
Yeah,
use any like apps for summer spotting? I'm looking for like I'm thinking the other day, getting a couple hundred yards back in these fields when these bucks come out. Is there a phone app or some sort of digital scope for getting pictures, collecting long
yeah.
range
Phone
stuff?
scope.
Phone scope. I've seen that. Is that good?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's quite a few. There's
I'll
quite a
send
few.
you a video that I have of my buddy in Utah sent me a video of an elk last year. He was 400 yards away through a spotting scope, and it's like he's right in front of you.
Wow.
Hmm.
I'll send it to you after this. But yeah, it's like a little thing that clicks on your camera, and then there's an adapter that fits on your spotting scope or bino, whatever you want. And you just kind of click it in and record, and then you just look at it like you would through the spotting scope, and
Okay.
that's pretty good. It also depends on your phone too. Like if you
Right.
have a
Right.
really good camera on your phone, like some of them do, some of them don't. But um, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay.
I would definitely look into that. That's a good one.
Will do.
Magview and All In are also some really good ones.
Magview.
Yeah,
Never heard of them.
Magview came out first, and then All In came out after them, I think. But they're both really good, kind of like what Paul was saying. Adapter goes on your spotting scope, and then an adapter goes on your basically a magnet goes on your phone, and then just clips on and right there. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen
I don't.
purpose for that Magview.
Magview has one for their spotting scope, and they have one for their binoculars. It's two
Two
it's not
separate.
like universe. Yeah, it's two separate. So
Isn't there one for a compound bow too for like filming, like mag view, some sort of you put on the front of your bow, throw your
yeah, it's
camera on there,
it kind of goes like where your stabilizer kind of
something like
goes,
that. Yeah.
and you put your phone on it.
Yeah, I would just get the Tacticam at that point. The new ones have all that vibration stability and shock impact stabilizing and all that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
if you're gonna do that on your bow, I would go from there.
Josie's dad has he has every one of them. He's got the solo hunter, he's got the 5.0, the 5.0 wide, and then he just got the 6.0. And the 6.0 has the camera on the face, like on like there's like a screen on the Tacticam itself. That way you can kind of see like what you're looking
See
at.
what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So and then they also got like the
Nice.
fish. They like, got like the fisheye one, for like if you're kayaking and stuff. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, my complaint with them has always been it always looks farther away than it actually is.
No, 100%.
But they've done pretty well with developing that into a product that makes up for that. And it's like now in the 5.0 and the 6.0, especially the 5.0 wide, that they have you're able to really bring it in and you could zoom in and all that. So definitely cool products, but
I'd say more
if you
than
want,
anything, it's amazing for like a POV, right? So like if you're turkey hunting, for
yeah,
example, get one
Yeah.
because you've also got the
put
universal
one under the
remote.
decoy.
Yeah, like you've got the remote that can, simultaneously turn all of them on. So you've got, one maybe in the blind looking at you, one out on the birds, and your decoy spread and whatnot. Or even if you're bow hunting. Like for me, like for an extra POV, obviously I have my main filming camera, and then I have a Tacticam kind of over like my right shoulder, and then I have another one kind of out on like a limb or something, kind of looking back, so different
Yeah.
angles.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I don't shoot anything, because I have like three different people with Polaroids in each one of the stands. So every time someone
Yeah.
comes in, they just start taking pictures because I can't afford to have all the tech cams, everything.
No, I get that setup. It was nice. I had a guy last winter set up one here in Ohio on the exit side of a doe, and it's from an elevated blind. You can
Oh, I
see
remember that. Yeah.
you see that slow mo, the stream of blood,
Yeah.
the arrow going through, and all of a sudden like had a delay, and you see the stream carp flying. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, holy cow, that's a stream of blood. It's a cool
Caleb's
video.
aborting. He's aborting the mission. He hears a gobble.
He actually did. There actually was a bird out in like in front of his house like earlier today. Actually, I think a couple of them. I think.
There you go.
Did you hear any of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
No.
no, I hear you guys. Yeah, no,
Uh,
there was birds out yesterday in front of the neighbor's house. I mean, season's over, so they're gonna be in my backyard and
Yeah.
whatnot.
They'll be sitting on your deck, eating your bird seed.
Yeah, chasing my dogs around.
Yeah. All right. Well, a little banter here from the Bowmen. This is episode 4 of the Bowman podcast. We got the usual crew here. We got Cedric and Caleb from CT Media, Josh from Triple Point Outdoors, and Troy from Greenlight Outdoors, and myself. We're here. We're going to talk today a little bit about food plots, when to plant them, why to plant them, how to hunt them, what you're looking for, what should work the best, and then also a little bit of later season food plots. We're going to get into set up an entrance into them, and we're going to talk a little bit. Hopefully we can get into some camo talk here at the end, but we want to keep it in line with the seasons and the seasonality that's going on into the hunting coming up. And right now it's full blown into basically mineral planting food plots and getting your stands ready for this fall. So I know that Josh and Troy had a back-breaking weekend there out in Ohio on the farms, and the weather didn't play to their advantage. It was like the first 2 days, it was 98 degrees and humid, and they chose to go venturing out and planting and seeding and grinding. So how'd that go for you all?
Hot.
Hot.
No, it went
Stifling.
good though.
Yeah. Well, you get done what you wanted to get done.
Or you go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, the one property we were on, that was the first time that I have actually been able to walk the property. I've seen it through Onyx maps, just kind of looked around and been in the area. It's only about 10 minutes from my house, so that's awesome. But no, we were able to walk the property. We walked the property with the one of the owners, so getting his experience over the years, and he's hunted it for years and years, and that's, as you guys all know, that's invaluable.
invaluable, yeah.
Because the deer, obviously year to year they change, but instinctually they all usually want to do about the same thing. So their patterns generally stay the same, and as they grow, you learn and move. So he showed us some of his hot spots, some places that he liked to be, and then we kind of came up with our own game plan as for how we're going to try and hunt it this coming fall, and where we're going to try and get our pattern set up. So
So now is he giving you reign of the property? So are you planting what you want, like kind of doing what you want, or does he have it farmed or ready for you?
I mean, the both farms already are agricultural farm for corn and beans. So
Okay.
they rotated this year. The nice thing is it's going to work out well for us because what was beans last year is corn this year. So getting to stand as far as access to stands with the corn up that high will be pretty nice for us to do for a few sets. And then the beans will be good in the other farm because you can see over them all the time. So we'll be able to, like I talked earlier, the spotting scopes, because I want to get some decent, pictures this summer of spotting scopes and getting out and riding that e-bike around and with my chaps on, Troy, and getting some pictures of deer.
heck yeah.
We joke about that all the time, but it's fun. I'll tell you, I did not realize how fun those things were until I rode one for the first time. I did the same thing, but for me, for summer scouting, at least around the lake here I live next to and the farms here, I'll be able to get out all summer and scout. But we were able to watch, both farms set up this weekend and get the mineral sites out. We didn't put too many per one farm. We did some hot areas where we knew the deer would be frequenting through. and also talked about some stand set locations and blind locations and wind and all those good things that you talk about in the summer as you're out having fun. It wasn't a lot of taxing physical work, but it was a good time without, I think, with, all of us together out talking about our experiences and hunting the farms and what we bring to it. And some of the areas I haven't hunted yet, but I know they're good. So it should be a really good fall for us, setting these farms up and watching all summer. And then, of course, we have Hunt Tech and Trees and Camo coming over, and as well as Final Descent Outdoors November to hunt the Peak of the Rut. And so we're kind of setting all this up in anticipation of that. And then we'll be hunting before then somewhat too. So we'll be able to watch and see where the deer are moving.
Awesome. So now, are you guys supplementally like putting mineral out, or how did that go?
Yeah, we put Lucky Buck out in one area, and then what was that stuff you had, Josh? It's slipping my mind.
Big time is what I
Big
got.
time.
Yeah.
So how'd you go about figuring out where you wanted to put that?
I mean, I've hunted the farms for a year, and then of course the guy that's hunted for years and years was talking to me about deer movement, runways, patterns, trails, and so forth. But I got a pretty good beat on how the deer move around these farms last year, harvesting a decent buck on it, about a 145. First buck I shot with the Clovis, and then I harvested a couple of does off the farm too. I used a vertical bow and a crossbow. Caleb, sorry, I shot a doe with a crossbow. She was only 20 yards away. It smoked her. It was a Raven R10, and then I used, I think, my Matthews old Creed XS. But I think the biggest thing is knowing where your deer primarily move. We do have one area. It's a little pizza pie shape, kind of a swampy bottom next to a creek, and it's across a road. And it looks like a really hot area during rut where those does might get into if they're getting pushed and they want to run away and get out of the buck's range, so to speak, or get away from them. So I think it'd be good to put a blind in there. And we have certain areas where we know it's going to be hot and we have mineral sites out. And then we have some other areas where it'd be good to put some things up just to see what passes by in the peak of rut.
Nice.
Yeah, we talked as we're walking through, looking for where the deer have bedded in the past. So getting between bedding and food and bedding and water and vice versa, and then using those mineral sites to help funnel the deer, through those locations so we can hunt them, as they move, as they're going to do it every day.
Great. That's awesome. So now, Cedric, down there in Missouri, how's it differ for you? I know you were a guide in the past, and still are, and take people around. So how are you getting involved in this preseason food plot planning and what they're putting out and kind of the reasons why they choose what they do?
Yeah, so um where I live, we're not able to do mineral and stuff like that because we're in a CWD county. You can in different counties. So as far as like on the mineral side of things, like we do the same stuff in the places that we can, get mineral out, while they're growing and stuff right now. But as far as food and stuff goes, down here where I'm at currently in the Ozarks, it's horrible. I mean, we grow rocks down here. It's not great planting. It's not great planting soil. So thankfully I'm blessed enough that one of the properties that I have permission to hunt is a bunch of like creek bottom ground. So it's got good soil. So on that specific farm, I actually didn't shoot a deer off of it last year. But another guy, the farmer did, and he actually shot his best deer because of the work that we put in. So like the way that farm sits out is it's 20 acres of creek bottom ground, and then it's like 40 to 60 acres of timber. But it's all like one big open hayfield. So it's not like there's natural funnels or, anything that you're going to find up in like northern Missouri or Ohio or places like that. Like it's just not there on this farm. So what we've had to do is kind of create, our own funnels and stuff like that with food. And a lot of people don't take that into consideration or really realize how you can manipulate deer with that. Right. So like for example, people just think, oh, let's go put a 5-acre, clover plot or brassica plot or whatnot. And I'll kill a deer off of it. And if you're rifle hunting, maybe more than likely, probably, you throw a box blind in the middle of it and you're set. But if you're bow hunting, like most of us do here, you really got to manipulate that, those crops and whatnot to make you be successful. So like what we do is, we'll have, for example, we have a little bit of clover. We have a small clover plot that has some chicory kind of near it and whatnot. But what we do is we kind of divide our fields with switchgrass, and that way when that buck walks out, he can't just walk. He can't just see across that whole field, right? And if he doesn't see something he likes, he's out of there. You're not even getting an opportunity. So we plant a lot of switchgrass to kind of help make one big plot into a bunch of smaller plots. And then, but we won't plant the whole thing in switchgrass. Like we'll stop it, 20 yards from the edge of the timber. That way that deer is going to walk the edge of that. He's going to kind of curl around the end of that to go see that extra plot, right? Well, then where's your stand? It's right there on that, man-made now point. And, so that's kind of some of the stuff that we do down here. Up north, we're hunting over a lot of big ag fields, cut corn, beans whenever they're in and whatnot. So we have to manipulate crops down here a lot. And like I said, we put mineral out where we can and when we can, but we don't always get to. So,
Yeah. No, I understand that. I wish there was more availability to be able to do that, but we know when it comes to state regulations and laws based on EHD and CWD and all that, it's something we all got to follow and go from there. I'm sure we would all like to do a little bit more, but some places you just can't. And that's that. So when you're up in the northern part and you're hunting over these big ag fields and everything up there, what is the time that goes in to figure out like where to put your stand? Like I know, but for someone out there that's just starting out, you go out to Missouri and there's a 100-acre bean field and you could put your stand anywhere around it. How much time is going into watching where they're coming from, where they're going? Is it history? Like what is going into that farm for someone who's going out there and hunting the first time?
Yeah, I'd say, man, it's never ending. I mean, if you're a first, if you're a first year hunter, it's a little more difficult than, guys that have that, years of history or whatnot on that farm. But I mean, last year's intel, is what leads us to be successful, year in and year out, the following year and whatnot. Surprisingly, we don't hunt, a lot of, those big ag fields. Like we're not hunting like right there on the timber edge. We actually push deeper 20, 30 yards in the timber. Because I mean, personal preference, the experience that I have and the guys that I work with and whatnot. A lot of those big bucks, I mean, and we all know because we've all had it happen, they're coming out last light. You're like, gosh, dang it. I just needed 20 or 30 more minutes. Well, what are they doing those 20 or 30 more minutes? They're in a staging area, letting everybody else go out there, make sure everything's fine. And then they're coming out, they're usually the last deer in the field. Right. And unless it's cold, I mean, if it's cold, I mean, weather depicts that too. I mean, and that's a whole nother topic we can get into at a different time, but weather depicts, stand location and everything like that too. But if you're talking just straight food, food plots and stuff like that, we try to put them in those, like try to get them in those staging areas. Like, down here, we don't have big destination ag fields down here in Southwest Missouri where I live, unlike up north. So your kill plots, your 1 to 3 acres that you're planting down here is almost kind of like a destination food source down here for these deer that are just picking on acorns and whatnot. But you get up north where you have, 100 acres of just straight corn. They don't need your food plot, right? So you have to, that's where becoming a woods or being a good woodsman and whatnot, and finding those travel corridors that deer are liking, that they like to use, and trying to plant your food plots right there and basically create a little staging area that they can kind of go, they can kind of hang out, they can mess around, they can pick around a little bit right there while they're waiting, to then move into their bigger food sources.
Nice.
So that's how we attack it on those big ag fields. Is we push deeper in 20, 30 yards into the timber. A lot of times most of the time, unless you've got 200 cameras to put on a 100-acre cornfield, you're not going to know.
Yeah.
I mean, that you could have your stand right here and that deer's going to come out 100 yards right. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a wild animal, right?
Always happens.
Yeah. So we do still hunt those those corners and those pinches and those funnels and whatnot, but we don't hunt. I mean, a lot of times we're not hunting. It's just it's not like TV, right? It's not like what everybody sees on TV that, you know, you've got this big wide open bean field and this deer happens to walk right down and, you know,
Yep.
this and that. And then you shoot him at freaking 10 yards with a homemade recurve bow and he runs 20 yards and falls over in your big open bean field. Like it just,
Yeah, no.
it doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen like that 99% of the time. So
Every
and
time
most
I've
people,
done that, they come out at 1,000 yards and they look at you sitting in the tree and they go, walk the
Yeah.
other way.
yeah. So
See ya.
yeah. So, I mean, we hunt a lot of creek crossings, you know, a lot of stuff like that next to food sources. We're not hunting right on the food source. We're hunting where they have to come to get to that food source. So that's how we attack it.
Yeah. An old adage that a guy told me once was hunt the timber in the morning and hunt the food in the evening. And if you
Okay.
follow that, you're pretty much going to be successful. If you're sitting over food and a plot or something like that during the morning, you're probably not going to get it because they're coming out of that going into bed. So hunt the timber in the morning and hunt the food in the evening, and you'll be pretty successful. So and he's been right. So I mean, obviously there's those one-offs, but you know, pretty good adage for Midwestern, you know, buck hunting. So
Yeah. And I know like, and this might be a whole nother topic, but as far as what times you're, like you were saying, what times you hunt, I mean, I don't hunt mornings until that last week of October.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I just don't. I mean, you're just setting yourself up for failure, in my opinion.
Yeah,
So,
early season, they're not coming out till the last hour of daylight where it cools down. You're just scaring everything out of the plots or wherever you're walking into. You know, until the rut starts to kick off a little bit, there's no point in really hunting mornings out there in the Midwest. I do out here in Virginia the first couple days, mainly just because it's opening day, you know, and you want to get out there and you got that itch. And I do have some back access here where they're coming into my property here to bed. So I do have a couple stands that I can get lucky on, but mainly it's evenings.
yeah. And that's different. And it also, I think it changes whenever are you talking rifle hunters or are you talking bow hunters? You know, if you're a rifle hunter and you got a 100-acre cornfield, set a freaking redneck right out in the middle of that thing and let her rip. You know what I mean? You're probably going to kill something. So, or if you got a crossbow, but I mean, if you've, but, but you know, if you're talking archery and whatnot, and man, so Josie's dad, I mean, he hunts exclusively with a recurve. I mean, you talk about what you've got to do to get within, you know, killing distance with one of those things. So time in the woods, I don't think anything substitutes that. So
Oh, exactly. What are you seeing up there, Caleb? What's the kind of the tactics in Nebraska and what you've been exposed to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have a couple friends that run plots. I think, you know, the hard part here is most farmable ground is farmed. Like if it is good dirt, more than likely there's already corn or beans in it. So it's pretty difficult. And then on top of that, I think maybe we have some weird rules as far as excuse me, as far as like minerals or any kind of anything like that, like Big and J or anything that would be considered baiting. We can't do that. So like for instance, you can set out, so I could put out a bag of feed corn, right, that you can buy at any store for $5, 50-pound bag, but all of that corn has to be gone 10 days before season opens. So one of the biggest problems I've had buddies that have been busted because they throw corn out and they get a deer used to using it. And then, you know, anytime someone kills a big deer around here, most of the time the DNR want to know where he shot it at. You know, Nebraska's this side of the state's not really that well known for big deer. So when you get a really good one, most of the time the DNR wants to know. But as far as food plots go, sometimes I feel like they do more harm than good out here. And the reason I say that is because if you want it to be like thriving, like a thriving food plot, you got to spend a shitload of time out there. And
You're probably watering it too.
gosh, yes. Like it's just, I think it's more work than what it's worth, honestly. And like I said, there's so much activity there that I think the deer aren't really sure what to think of it. So, you know, I don't think it's really beneficial in my opinion. I don't know, honestly, anybody that's killed a deer over a food plot out here. I know my buddy Ryan, he plants quite a few, and his buck last year, it was like a 160 class deer. He killed it 300 yards away from his food plot because that's where all the deer were at. So even though he planted a food plot and put all his time and effort, fertilizing, all that stuff, he never even saw a deer in his plot. He never got a picture of a deer in his plot because he was spending so much time on the 4-wheeler and out in his little tractor just trying to make it grow. And the deer never ended up using it. So the soil out here, like I said, if it's farmable, it's definitely being farmed. So as far as tactics go out here, I know we've talked about this already on the podcast, but a lot of it's Western style hunting. So, for bedding areas, we hunt mornings, but most of our morning hunts are a scouting mission, if that makes sense. We're looking for where those deer are going to bed, or antelope, or whatever it be. We're looking for where they're going to bed, and then we're trying to figure out a way how to get to them. And we have a lot of canyon country out here, a lot of low spots, stuff like that. So we're just trying to figure out where that deer's going and then try to sneak up on them. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game out here. Anybody that's a Western hunter knows that 99% of the time you're going to have to move in order to get within bow range of whatever you're chasing. So I guess my experience and my style of hunting is probably different to most of you guys because we just don't have that. I mean, we have ag fields, we have corn, we have beans, and there's plenty of guys that hunt that, and they might be successful, they might not be, I'm not sure. But if I'm hunting and it's not November, most of them I'm hunting from the truck. I mean, I'm watching to see where they're going, and then I'm figuring out where they're bedding, and either I'm going to set up to where they're going back to that field that they just came off of, or I'm going to try, if I feel like the wind is right and the conditions are right, especially right after it rains when it's really quiet, I can try to get up in closer on them. But yeah, food plots and minerals are kind of a no-go here in Nebraska. Just the soil's not right for it. Super sandy. So doesn't really work.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
What
Yeah,
about you,
definitely
Paul?
different. Well, for me, it's here in Virginia, it's a little bit different. Like we do have some farmland. Most of them are small plots. There's nothing that's huge. I'd probably say maybe 20, 30 acres the most if you see corn. A lot of hay fields. Predominantly out here in horse country, there's just a ton of hay in goldenrod that they do. So every once in a while, they'll rotate corn into beans, etc., down the road. But the properties we have here, it's really like a natural funnel. So we have creek on one side. Then it comes up to our house. It's my house and my neighbor's house. And we have 12 acres each. And then there's 60 acres on this side, 60 acres on this side, and then 40 acres behind us. And then the other houses are along the road. So we really have well over 100 acres in the middle. But when you go down, it goes down to a creek bottom and then up with a lot of laurel bushes, thick, like really good black bear country. And then at the top, it's a huge ridge line that runs the whole top, and then it goes down into the farmland, behind it. So I'm on the back side of going into bedding, cover, where they're going to run to if someone comes into that field, or depending on the season. When we first moved in here, I mean, we must have had a female black bear in heat, but I counted 20 something bears coming in and out all the time. It was just prime area for. I'm talking studs, like 700-800 pound bruisers. I got some pictures I'll show you guys that are just like their heads are like this, just really great bears. Um, but the bucks around here, they live in here. So all season, spring, summer, and then into the fall, once they start shedding their velvet, they live here all the time because it's great cover. They got water, they got the fields on the other side. But there's not a lot of does, and that's the problem with here. Is every year I could probably count in one hand how many does we have. So once the rut kicks into play, really I don't even hunt here that much because they're gone. If we're lucky to have a group that has stayed, then you'll get a couple cruisers coming in and whatnot. But really, where I am, it's early season and late season. That's what this farm is really, this area where we hunt is really set up for. So, getting out into more of those ag fields and hay fields and working the same thing, 30, 40 yards. The terroir out here is very similar to Illinois, where you have ag field and then it drops down into a gorge, with a creek bottom or some, low lighting rock where they pushed everything away, it comes back up. Then you have CRP and bedding. So very similar around here in the way it's set up. So you're hunting very similar to you would in like an Illinois standpoint. But specifically here, we're really you're hunting bedroom activity pretty much all the time, which could be difficult. Early season, like if I ever had a velvet season here, that'd be money. I mean, it's night and day where they come and go. You can sit there with your stopwatch and be like, okay, go, and here they come. But as soon as their horns get hard, they're starting to look, and if you don't have the does, they're just not going to be there. So I think that brings me to my point too of really building your farm or your property or wherever you're hunting is we all hate seeing 20, 30 does, right? And not seeing a buck, but you know, once that rut kicks in, you got to be where the does are. I live where the bucks are, and they're nice to see growing and all year round. But when I want to hunt them, they're not here. I got to go find them. So, it's a little bit different.
That's kind of funny because I have the opposite problem here. So where we live, actually, at the shop and our homes here is on a lake, and we have like a 10-mile perimeter lake we live on. It's a fairly large lake here in Ohio, Central Ohio, and next to this, so next to where the house is, there are just huge agricultural fields, woods, perfect terrain. You guys probably know Ohio. Or you've seen Ohio if you haven't been here, but a mixture. We have just I think Troy would probably agree. I feel like we have the best mixture of terrain, environment, and crops for growing big deer. I mean, the proteins here, the covers here, the waters here, and people, we have food plots and they're successful here because I think what deer do is they get those sweet food plots and they like them compared to all the corn and beans they're always eating. And so they're like a little honey hole to those deer. And I guarantee you, watch the first probably 2-3 weeks of season, guys, the ODNR website, you'll see huge bucks being shot off food plots in Ohio. Troy probably knows what I'm talking about, where these guys are specifically targeting these bucks that they've watched for 4 or 5 years, and they know they're there, but they only have a small window, like you said, Paul. As they go hard horn and start to get kind of exploratory, and they start to feel their oats and want to find some does, then they'll be gone. But usually those guys are able to target those bucks quickly and get on them. But where I live on the lake, we just have tons and tons of does. So it's the opposite of your situation. Does
Yeah.
everywhere. All I see are does. Like by my house right now, there's probably 15, 20 does going to walk through at some point tonight. But then during the rut, it's like a smorgasbord for bucks, because then we'll get those huge bucks coming in from the farm fields, probably a mile away, and you'll see double drop tines, kickers, mass. I mean, just unbelievable deer running around chasing these does where I don't see them the rest of the year.
Yeah. Well, they'll travel a long way once that rut comes into play. I mean, they'll go up to 7 miles if they need
Unbelievable.
to,
Yeah.
documented. So, I got to say something about Virginia and living here for the past couple of years and seeing the bucks that come out of here. It's a little bit of a sleeper state in regards for whitetail hunting. I would say I'm probably on the cusp of where I live of big buck territory. I mean, we had a 190-inch buck get killed right on the road in front of my house right before I moved in. Um, so that's a solid ass deer for Virginia, let alone anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think once you get a little bit south of here, all the way to Southern Virginia and west, it's really good country to hunt, and we got a lot of big bucks come out of here. A lot of Boone and Crockett bucks come out of here as well, and it's just not that well known. So I think you're going to see this state become an up and comer here in the future, kind of like Maryland. Maryland's like that little you get into the right part of Maryland, it's that little bit of a sleeper state where you get some really nice bucks as well. I mean, will we ever be a Kansas or Kentucky? Probably not. But we have some contenders, and every year they're pulling some really nice deer out of here. So, I think Kentucky just got ranked one of the top up and coming states for whitetail hunting. Uh, my uncle lives out in Kentucky, and he shot some bruisers out there. There's just some really nice deer. And Kansas has always produced consistently. Illinois has kind of dropped off probably in the past 8, 9 years because of EHD and CWD, primarily EHD out there. But in the past year and a half, 2 years, really right now they're saying this is the year where Illinois is going to start coming back a little bit in regards to quality whitetail. In Ohio's already always had a really nice turnout there as well. So, and I like Western Pennsylvania because it's the same thing as Ohio, right? It's just a
Yeah.
line drawn in the middle. And
Mm-hmm.
Western Pennsylvania, now you want to talk about a sleeper area to hunt, man. If you can ever get some property or public land out there, it's just a lot of big timber out there to hunt. Not a lot of farmland, but there are plots and farms around, but a lot of big mountain country. And man, it's a hop, skip, and a jump from those Ohio bucks to come out there and stay. So that's really a great place as well. So some good stuff coming down there. Some really good input. So appreciate that. So Troy, let's talk a little bit about what happened to you a couple weeks ago. I know we wanted to talk about this, but kind of got pushed aside a little bit. So we were talking on the last podcast a little bit about raccoons and all of our experiences there, and I heard you had a little bit of old Western standoff with one. What happened?
Oh yeah. So yeah, this plays right into our predator control and I guess nuisance animal control, however you want to word it.
Mm-hmm.
But here at the house, we've got chickens and surrounded by ag farms, and everybody else has chickens, and it's just very common here in Ohio. So we all have issues with raccoons and mink and skunks and possums and all those critters that none of us like to bump into in the middle of the night, if we're walking back from the barn or whatever. And one night, we had some issues. I've got an old barn, a bank barn here at the house, and in the bottom of it, the previous owners, probably 2 or 3 owners ago, had built a nice big chicken coop in the bottom of the barn, which is great. But as the barn aged and things change, a hole will come up there and a hole will come up there, and people patch them, and so now it's probably a 10 by 12 by 12 room that's all chicken wire and it's all patched and everything else. So we had chickens in it, and we started having them come up missing and started putting out live traps, and I caught a handful of raccoons. And one night after we lost 2 or 3 chickens, I'm here at the house, and it's maybe 75 to 100 yards from the barn itself. So you can hear the chickens if they get upset, or you can hear kind of what's going on. So I'm out here at the house, and it was dark, or getting dark, and I hear the chickens just losing their minds inside the coop. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, like what got in there? We have some
Here
feral
we go.
cats, and we have some other things too. Well, me not really thinking before I took off, I just ran out there because I'd just been at the barn, I don't know, not even 30 minutes prior to it. So I run out there, and I come in the bottom of the bank barn, which, if any of you know, as soon as you step inside there's no lights or anything. So it's dark. I mean, jet black inside that bank barn. I step in and get in the coop, and I have a light I can turn on inside the coop. So I turn it on, and the chickens are just going crazy, running around, and I'm counting them. I'm like, okay, they're all here, and they're just going nuts, just running all around inside this coop. And I'm standing right there, and I'm like, well, nothing's in there with them. What is going on? Well, about that time, I just hear something different, and I look up, and the biggest raccoon I've ever seen in my life is between the chicken wire and the floor above me. And it's right there. I mean, I could have reached up and it touched it. But it had froze. Like when I came in the room, I think it just thought, oh shit, and it froze. So we make eye contact with each other, and this thing is huge. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I wheel out of there, and I sprinting across the yard to the house. And I'm thinking, okay, what do I want to grab? I want to grab a shotgun. I don't want to blow a big hole in the side of the barn. But I want to kill it. And I'm not going for like a pellet gun or a high powered rifle or anything, So I'm like, okay, first thing I get my hands on is a little 22 pistol, semi-automatic pistol. I'm like, okay, perfect. So I'm sprinting back out to the barn, and I grab a little flashlight as I'm in the house. And so I'm, pulling a Cedric. I'm out there with my light and my pistol. So anyways, I come back in the bottom of the barn, and I'm thinking that the raccoon's still going to be there. And of course it's not. So I'm like, oh, great. And the barn is huge. I mean, it's big enough I could I had an old F-250. I could pull it in the top of it and turn around inside. So it's a huge barn. So here I am, Rambo style, whatever you want to do it. I got this little tiny flashlight and my little 22 pistol. And I start searching through this barn looking for this raccoon. And in my head, I kept thinking, okay, I don't want to shoot a hole in the side of the barn. I'm thinking all these things I don't want to shoot. And I don't want to shoot towards this. I don't want to shoot towards that. So I'm debating on just leaving, but I can't leave this raccoon in there to murder all my chickens because my kids love them and everything else. So long story short, I kind of searched throughout the whole barn, don't find it. And there's one, it's an old grain crib in the barn built in. It's like a big closet right in the middle. So you take a jet black barn, and then you add another room with no windows, and there's like stalls in it, for the old, they'd store grain in there.
Wait a minute. This is clearly turning into like a YouTube murder mystery. My wife listens to.
It was
I'm
sick.
concerned. I'm concerned.
I should have called for help. But so here I am, I'm in deep, it's one of those, you can't turn around, you got to keep going. And I get to the door and I'm like, this got to be in here. She's got to be in here. So here I am and I'm peeking around each corner. I got the pistol and I'm peeking around, and they're not big. They're only probably 2.5 feet wide, like cribs that are probably 4 feet deep, and it's about 10 foot tall room. So you're looking down each stall as you're coming in this room, and there's not very much room in it. And sure enough, nothing. Each one I peek around, I'm like, sure, it's gonna be right there. I'm just gonna be able to shoot her. There's gonna be no issues. Well, I get to that last one, and I peek around it, and there she was right there, and it was
Jeez.
like waiting for me, which I knew. So I backed up. I'm thinking, okay, I got my flashlight on her. I'm aiming like perfect. I'm thinking one shot, kill, clean, like no issues. Well, I don't know if I waited too long or what happened, but as I pulled the trigger, she was moving, and all I did is make her mad, and she came at me, and it was nothing but teeth
Oh,
and
God.
fur, and like, and we're like I'm point blank, and this is like PTSD, like wartime. We're about to go, like I'm about to pull a knife out, and we're going down, So, anyways, luckily I had that semi-automatic pistol in my hand, and I'm not afraid to, like Cedric says, I'm not afraid to let them fly if it needs to fly. So she come at me, so pop, pop, pop. So I'm backing up, boom, 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 just laying him into this raccoon, right? And I probably squeezed off about 5 rounds, 6 rounds before she finally quit coming at me. And about the time, my adrenaline's pumping and my wife's texting my phone, like, what in the world is going on? Like, are you fighting a gang of raccoons in the barn?
Pow, pow, pow,
And,
pow.
yeah, I mean, it was wild. So then, yeah, it was huge. I mean, she was every bit of 25, 30 pounds, had a missing front paw. So she'd been caught in a trap
Jeez.
before and chewed her paw off to get away.
Wow.
Legend.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
unbelievable. Luckily, she didn't get a hold of me, as she was coming at me, but that little
So you
22.
saw this as she walked away, or you finally were able to get her?
Oh yeah, I
Okay.
didn't quit shooting. I stopped shooting when she
I
stopped
had to make
coming.
sure. I don't know. I didn't want to leave it open for
No,
interpretation.
definitely got her. And then, so to add to this whole thing, because there's probably gonna be people that don't want to hear about that sort of thing. As I was getting her out of the barn and everything else, seeing how big she was, we did hear babies. So I could, after all the commotion stopped, I heard babies. And of course, I just, my wife didn't want to let them go to, die on their own. So I collected them up in a 5-gallon bucket, which they're like nasty little Tasmanian devils at that point, and they're trying to rip my face off too. That was probably just as dangerous as me, getting rid of the parent. But so we got a hold of them, got all of them rounded up, and we're actually able to give them to like a raccoon rescue guy that wanted to save them and make them
Raccoon
pets,
rescue guy.
and he loved them. I mean, he was.
Sounds like
I'm not
a
kidding.
So
turkey
I pull
hunter's
these-
worst nightmare.
I pull these baby raccoons out, and they are just Tasmanian devils. I mean, they were unbelievably mean. And I have them in a 5-gallon bucket, and they're just trying to rip everything to shreds that they can get a hold of. And we get a hold of this guy. And of course, we put it on Facebook like everyone does. And next thing you know, our phones are blowing up with people that want these babies. And we get a hold of him, and I'm not kidding. These things just came out of a barn. Who knows what kind of issues they have or parasites. He doesn't even hesitate when I show him the bucket of raccoon tack animals that I have. He just reaches in barehanded, grabs them, and this is just gentleman. He had a big old beard, and he held them up against his face, and those babies like curled into his neck, and he was in heaven. And I just gave him the whole bucket. I didn't even ask for
Oh,
payment.
jeez.
I just here's the bucket and the little devil dogs that are in there, and you just enjoy yourself. So
dude, you met
Oh,
a
my
raccoon whisperer there, man.
he
Oh,
was happy.
man.
I mean, I got rid of the pests, and that guy was happy. So
Why is
Um,
Caleb's smiling like he has like another story or something. Caleb, you look like you have something to add in there. You can see.
Yeah. So
He does. He does.
He does.
He does.
no, this reminds me. So we had, I mean, growing up on the farm, you always have a problem with the raccoons, but we actually, this is not about a raccoon. We had a lot of problems with rats, just because we had a lot of grain and corn and soybeans and stuff just kind of hanging out in the barn. And so we would, as kids, it was like one of those things where we'd take our BB guns and we go out and shoot rats and do all this cool stuff, right? Well, so my dad, he had heard from this guy that, like, this is going to be, so people are probably going to hate me for this, but this guy told my dad, like, if you want to get rid of rats, you put soda in like anything that they can drink out of, and you set it out and they drink it, but rats can't burp or fart. So it blows up their intestines. Well,
Is that true?
yeah, it works for mice
Jeez.
too. So get after it. So we do this, right? And my dad, he called me over to the shop one day, and he's just laughing his ass off, man. He's basically rolling, and this rat is running around like crazy, just jumping all over the place because I'm basically dying. I mean, this is so morbid, like this should not be told, but yeah. So
But he's
like,
going to.
oh yeah.
We're not leaving it unsaid.
So like on our shop, there's just one wall that has a bunch of cabinets and cupboards in it. So that's where we kept some of our BB guns that we would shoot with and stuff like that. And I opened this cabinet, and without even looking, I reach in there to grab, it's a little pellet gun pistol. And as soon as I reach, I feel something furry, and I like pull my hand back real quick, and there's this big old rat like staring at me like you just killed my brother or something. Yeah, like pissed, and like straight up just jumped out at me. And like, so what he was saying about like PTSD, man, I was like, as he's telling that story, I'm like thinking of these rats. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. My dad is the kind of guy where he would soak whiskey and bread and feed it to our chickens to watch them stumble around the yard. Like him and his buddies were so they were so messed up, man. They would do some crazy stuff, man. We got a donkey drunk one time. That was hilarious. Like, you want to talk, man.
Okay,
There's not much to do in Iowa, but
something
everybody's got a story like that. Like
Yes.
like whenever so I was fresh out of the academy, and this is pre Josie, my wife. But anyway, so I'm talking to some girl on the phone, and same deal. I was staying at my parents' house, and I could hear chicken. They had chickens, and I could hear them just squawking. There's something out there, and we had the same problem. We had some coming up with their heads missing and whatnot, and so anyways, I'm sleeping on my parents' couch, and I'm on the phone, and I'm like, hold on, I hear something. And she's like, what? And I was like, I don't know. I hear something outside. So I'll put it on speaker. So I put it on speaker. I grab my gun. I go out to the chicken coop, and by God, there's a raccoon, and he's got a chicken. So he's on the outside of the fence, and he's got a hold of a chicken underneath the fence, trying to pull it under. And he sees me, and I see him, and we just kind of stare at each other for a second. And he lets go of that chicken, and he pulls his hand back like maybe he won't see me. And I just draw down on him, and I yell, I'm like, highway patrol, show me your hands. And I just lay into this raccoon. And I mean, it's like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I probably shot 10 times with a 40. And I can hear like my phone freaking out, like, what's going on? My dad comes running outside. He's like, what happened? I was like, I got him. And he was like, what do you mean you got him? And I was just
good.
Like, yeah, I was like, I got that raccoon. And he was like, oh my gosh, okay. So everybody's got one of those,
Oh yeah, I got a little better one that's not doesn't have to do with killing the raccoons, but I grew up hour north of New York City, and we have like a little bit over an acre and right off a highway, and just really suburban area in New York. And my sister had her daughter at the time, and she was like 1. So out on our back porch, we had this like little kids play set. And I mean, you guys know it has like a little slide, it has 2 swings, it has like a little house you can play in. And then there's the barbecue to the left. And they would sit there and they would play and swing, and we could watch the kids. So I'm staying there one night, and we're watching her, and all of a sudden, like, we just hear screaming outside. Like, you know how raccoons get like when they're just all riled up. It's like screaming. It's like kids screaming and yelling and whatever. My dad jumps out of bed in his underwear. I jump out of bed in my underwear. My mom's like under the covers, like, what the hell's going on? Like, and So I run upstairs. He comes shooting out of the bedroom. We turn on the light outside. He's got a gun. I got a flashlight. And there's 3 raccoons, right? 2 of them are swinging on the swings, and one is going down the slide and running around
That's
and
great.
going down the slide again. I'm not even joking, just constantly going back and forth, just having a ball out there. It was the funniest thing.
That's
Oh
crazy.
man, it
That's
was so
crazy.
funny.
That's
But
crazy. I don't have any of those
it was like a
stories. I have
playpen
nothing.
for them.
I have no raccoon stories. The only thing I've got a few,
You
but the
got
only thing
groundhog stories.
yeah, I have a lot of groundhog stories. But the weirdest thing I saw, speaking of like rats, Caleb told me, and this is just something I saw, but it scared the living dickens out of me. My wife and I are in Columbus, Ohio, and Columbus, Ohio is a great city. You know, capital of Ohio. It's a great city. Not hands down, we like going down there. But we're in the like downtown part, and it's night. It was probably 11:30, and we're getting ready to come home from a dinner out. And I get in the truck first, and I hop in, you know, and she's getting in. Of course, I should have been a gentleman open the door, but I didn't. I just got in, and I look out my front windshield, and I saw this shadow thing like kind of pop across in the street, right? I'm thinking, what's that? You know, like a kid or a person. Well, I look in front of me, probably like 50 yards out. I'm thinking, I'm talking archery terms here, 50 yards out, but I swear to gosh, it was a rat the size of a dog. Like it was probably beagle size. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't that big, but it goes across from my truck, and I'm like, get in, we got to hit it. You know, I'm like, I don't want to try to hit. Of course, I'm not going to hit the thing, but like it was huge. I've never seen anything that big. But you know, I'm sure they can get really big in New York and stuff. I don't know.
I don't know about that big, but
It
they
was
can
huge.
definitely get some big. They can get big. Well, that's fun
Yeah.
stuff.
So
I think
predator
Cedric's gonna fall
control, varmint
asleep here.
control.
Man, I'm telling you,
Important.
I've been up that late last night.
Yeah.
I'm only running like 3 hours of sleep that I was able to get.
Yeah.
Wait till you
I
have
think
some
all of us
kids.
are a
That's
little
Yeah.
every day with a handful of
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, I get.
Yeah.
get
Hey,
used to it, man.
That's why I got all these lines and stuff.
I have a
Yeah.
weird question for you guys. Just kind of popped up to me, and it's a weird question, but just popped in my head. What's the scare? Okay, have you ever been scared while going to tree stand or out of tree stand at night? It's dark, morning or night. Okay,
Yes.
I've had something happen to me, but I want to hear what's the scariest thing you've had happen to you?
Well, I'll start. One, we growing up in New York, in middle New York, we bear hunted a lot, and so we had a ton of bears on our property. And I was walking. We probably parked the car, and we walk down this trail. And my dad goes right and goes up to the mountain to a stand, and I go down into the swamp along a pond to a stand. And just as we split ways, my flashlight goes dead.
Oh,
So now it's like days of the flip phone, right? So I pick up my flip phone. There's no flashlight or anything. You're lucky there's a camera. So I'm like using the highlight of the buttons to like walk. And I've hunted there my whole life. I know exactly where to go. But like I get down, I crest into the wood line, I start going down, I get into the swamp, and I cross over this um you know, when they used to have the old fields, they put all the rocks up and they made the rock walls. So you'd have like random rock walls in the middle of the woods because it used to be farmland. So I cross over that, and the minute like I put my foot down on the ground, I just hear like a baby crying. Just like, what is that? What? I was like, what is that?
What?
So I'm like freeze for a second, like I kind of poop myself. Kind of like, well, I can see my stand. I'm just gonna go and go up it because I don't know what else is going on. So I go up, I climb up it, I get strapped in, whatever, pull my bow up, knock everything, and then I don't hear anything, and I kind of hear walking, and then I hear it again crying, and I look over and I shine the light, and it's a bobcat right down there on the right. And you know,
Uh,
when you walk in on them, they like when they're scared, they sound like a baby crying. But man, I
yeah.
could have swore
Wow.
that someone dropped their little kid on the side of that rock wall. And I was gonna have to do something. Like I don't
That's
know.
crazy.
That was you've never heard anything until you're sitting in the middle of the woods, thousands of acres in a swamp, and you hear a baby cry. You're like, what?
That
I don't know.
That's weird.
I
I
can
don't know
relate
what
to
to
that.
do.
That's honestly where I grew up in Kansas. You know, we didn't have to worry about, you know, big predators, you know, no bears. Now, supposedly there's some mountain lions and things that have started to come back. But,
Of course.
and then here in Ohio, you know, there's no black bears. I mean, they see them randomly, but I don't know.
I've seen one. One.
As a little kid, you know, my dad would always tell me, "You're the scariest thing in the woods. You know, don't ever let something, you know, scare you in the woods. Just be calm and control your
He
emotions." And
apparently hasn't seen any of those murder shows where that
well,
little girl
you
in
know,
that
but
white shirt comes
Yep.
creeping out of
as
the
a
woods.
as a little kid, you know, so we'd go fishing on the river, you know, all night long, pitch black, walk in and out, things like that, you know. So it always helped me. But I have an experience here in Ohio where I was walking out of a stand at night. Actually, I got stuck in a stand, bunch of deer out in the field, and I didn't want to spook them off, so I stayed in the stand like another hour after dark. And I'm just sitting there, and it's pitch black, and I was trying to be real quiet because I didn't got to the point where I couldn't see where they went. So I was like, okay, it's been long enough. I'm gonna go ahead and try and sneak out of here. And I'm coming down the tree, being as quiet as I can be, and just like you said, Paul, I hear this like shrill crying,
Mm-mm-mm.
and I'm facing the tree, and I have my feet on the ground, and I'm kind of
Mm.
packing my things up, and I'm being quiet, and every hair on my neck
Oh
just
yeah.
stood up, and I just like froze against a tree, and I didn't know what to do, I
Do I
just
go
froze.
back up?
Yeah, you just freeze for a minute,
Do-do-do-do-do.
and I'm like, okay, well, I guess if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. I just calmly like put my things away and just exited right. But that sound is, if you've never heard it in
Yes.
person in real life in the woods, it'll wake you up.
I saw my
Oh
first
yeah.
first one last year. It was in October, I think. I was in a stand hunting with the guy that owns that farm or runs a farm, and I had a bobcat. I didn't pay attention, but he came in on me, and I got him on camera, video actually. First time I've ever seen bow hunting, but I think my scary story is going to be there's one thing that really worried me that could have killed me, but then the two things that scared me. One, I had a grouse pop off in a brush pile in the dark in the morning. I'm walking a stand that's like
Oh jeez.
2 yards from me. It sounds like a
Yeah, heart
helicopter.
attack.
Sounds like a helicopter taking off. I'm surprised my old age, guys. I didn't have a heart attack. And then I had a pack of coyotes between me and my truck one time, or hound. I didn't like that a whole lot, but I put my climber stand on my back and thinking I'll just get in the fetal position and let them go at the metal climber stand if I have to. But the one thing I did do one time, it was really dumb and scary. I was a college kid hunting ruts, and I had no tree stands at that time because you're poor, you're a college kid, you're trying to make this money. And I got back home from college, and I sat by this tree, and it was starting to get dim, like the sun was going down. It was still legal shooting light, but I decided, what was I going to do? I'm going to go ahead and grunt one more series. I'm going to grunt real hard, real aggressive, really nasty, grunt and rattle. And right after I did it, I had this buck come down off the hill, so mad at me. He just ran at a dead sprint, like a beeline, through dry leaves, and it sounded like a freight train. The buck is coming at me. I'm sitting on the ground by a tree with nowhere to go, and all I hear is coming right at me. And he stops 20 yards away and doesn't move. And it's at that time I can't hunt. I can't shoot anymore. It's now dark enough. I can't shoot. Probably been 10 minutes past or 15 minutes past. And I'm sitting there going, okay, what do I do? And the only thing I can think of, I have no idea why I did this at the time. I'm thinking I got to scare this thing off, right? And I don't want to be aggressive because it might then kill me. I start whistling the Andy Griffith song. I have no idea why.
What?
It went away. I just started, you know why? Because I had a bird. I had a bird that could sing that. So I started whistling the Andy Griffith song, probably singing it too. I don't know what to do. What do you do? Hey, deer, don't kill me.
Yeah, that's sketchy. I actually had like a serious, like, this was, I mean, bad. So one of my dad's rules growing up was he always needed to see my deer stand. Like, he needed to know which stand I was hunting, when I was hunting it, how long I was hunting. Like, that was one of his big rules, that was kind of not before cell phones, but not everybody had them. So
Yeah.
growing up in Southwest Iowa, one of the coolest things that you can do, or like what was really cool, is when we got some public hunting ground. It was bought by the Army Corps of Engineers, so they were building levees, so for flooding and stuff like that, and they made it public for hunting. And we're talking, I mean, I think the one area that I was hunting was like just over 2,000 acres, but there's one gravel road in, one gravel road out. Like, that's all you got. And my dad dropped me off in the morning, and I told him I was going to hunt till probably like 1 or 2 is almost rut. And I go in, and all I have is my bow. I'm a 15-year-old kid. Like, I probably skipped school or something, whatever. Well, at that time, amphetamine started getting really big in that area. So like, there's Cedric, a lot of people on meth, stuff like that. And I got into my deer stand. I'm sitting there, and three grown dudes just start walking. Like, they're just walking down this soybean edge, like right towards my stand. And I'm like, okay, like, what am I supposed to do about this? Because I know they see me. Like, I know for a fact that they know I'm there. And
Let it
they
fly.
just no. So yeah, like, that was the thing, is like, so I had just gotten a cell phone about 2 weeks before that, and I text my dad. My dad at this time didn't even know how to text. And what was crazy is my dad watched me get into my stand, and he had seen these guys walking down the edge of the timberline, and he just like he was like watching, right? Well,
Yeah.
my dad's one of those, like he was one of those guys that like he knew how to get rid of a body type, you know what I mean? Like just one of those
Yeah.
that's like that's that healthy fear that he put in me. But yeah, these guys, like they stood at this time, I did not know my dad was there, and we're talking thousands of acres, right? And he come I remember he was driving his little green F1 or his green Ford Ranger, and he comes roaring across this bean field. I mean, they're not cut, nothing. Like there's still beans in the field. He comes
Jeez.
roaring across this field. And all I really remember, and I don't know, I guess I just never picked up on it, but one of the guys was like naked because he was so like drugged out of his mind. He had no idea that he was even naked. And that evidently was a problem in that area. They had a someone had pulled an old camper down there, and they made a I don't know, cookhouse, whatever, Cedric, like where they cook up meth or whatever. But yeah,
Yes,
that was super sketchy. I mean, as a 15-year-old kid, like it freaked me out. And to like that was the last time my dad let me go without a gun. He's like, I don't know what I would have done if I just left and didn't know that they were there. Like, who knows what would have happened? I mean, it's hard to say. I'm not saying that they would have tried to get me or anything like that, but that was legit fear. I mean, like he he gave me a 357 after that, and I always carried it with me. Like you're not supposed to in Iowa, but yeah, it was sketchy, man. Like it freaked me out for a long time. It took me a while to go back out by myself.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. So there was no animal that has ever scared me. I've had a squirrel jump into my lap when I was sitting in a ladder stand one time that kind of freaked me out, but not like that. That was sketchy.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
bet. Yeah, I mean, like I said
Cedric,
earlier, we hunted a lot of black bear, and I had a black bear come up and stand at me, and like the only thing between my feet and his nose was the little mesh thing, and he's sitting there like smelling and sniffing. We're talking like a 300-pound black bear, like nothing, no little
Wow.
bear, and like I just like I got like I hunted bow all the time, so I got a bow with me, and all I did was just I took my arrow off my rest, and I just every time he would put his nose up to smell, I'd poke him in the nose. And I'd poke him with the nose. After the third time, he like shook his head and he walked down and he walked away. Uh,
No, no.
yeah, I mean they're very
That's crazy.
inquisitive. They're
yeah,
they're I've never been afraid of a black bear. I mean, I've gone into places in the swamps and you drive in and all of a sudden you turn around, there's one sitting there. Um, and you just kind of back away, but you never know. You never know what's there.
yeah. I haven't had anything too bad really happen.
Well, you're a police officer, so you got to be worried about the other kind.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm not a big fan of coyotes. I'm gonna be real honest.
Really?
Man, that's yeah, you get a pack of them sounding off
Yeah.
as you're crossing an open field. Yeah, man, I don't
Yeah.
like that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, they ain't gonna
But
do anything to you.
yeah, well, yeah, but honestly, probably we were in Colorado last year elk hunting, and we were hunting over a watering hole, and nothing really happened. It was just that, like, I guess the principle around it. So we're just kind of sitting there. Me and I had a buddy with me filming and whatnot, and we're just kind of sitting there chatting and just kind of hanging out. And I happen to look over, and we have a mountain lion like 100 yards from us, like just sitting there. And
Huh.
I'm just like,
I'd be
oh
scared.
no,
That's crazy.
yeah, like had no idea, didn't hear anything, and she just sat there and just sat there, and it was watching her like play the thermals and play the wind for these elk like we were. It was kind of cool but yet eerie, because it was like
Oh yeah.
what's changing your mind from them to me,
Hmm.
Yeah.
so
You're
then it
easier
just
to
kind of,
catch.
yeah, exactly, yeah, I won't put up near a fight that an
Yeah.
elk will. And so the rest of the trip, just kind of, you know, made you kind of be aware of that, like, man, is there a big old cat, lurking
Oh
around
yeah.
here? So that was probably the best one.
Yeah, I had that happen to me in Colorado. My wife and I went out there for anniversaries, and we'd hike all the time. So we went hiking with. We had a guy that was like a guide. He had this little dog that he used to take with him all the time, and he'd take us on all the big hiking trails up the mountains and everything. And then, so we were hiking in, and then we came across a cat track. It's pretty fresh. Going down across the trail, and then the dog started getting freaked out, but we kept going, nothing happened. Then when we came back, we found the tracks following our tracks going
Wow.
up the whole way. And it followed us almost to the top and then like jumped off the side. But I mean,
Wow.
that thing could have just, you never would have known,
Hmm.
but it was
Yeah.
definitely, it was trailing. It wanted to know what was there. It was probably the dog that attracted him because it was just a little dog, it wasn't anything vicious or big, but I don't know. Ankle biters
Yeah.
can get kind of vicious, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back on the early season thing we were talking about earlier. So obviously you've got, your grains, and then you've got, your brassicas and, kind of more forage stuff like that. If you had to pick one, whether it be grains or, some type of leafy green or green leafy, what would you guys go with?
I am not the
Hmm.
one to answer that because I don't know. I don't do
Yeah.
it.
I
Yeah.
don't know, Troy. I don't know what's best. I don't think anything's the best personally. I don't. It's like, minerals and the plots we put out. People have their specifics. I understand that. For me, it's
Mhm.
what I have access to when I'm doing it. I mean, I'll be honest. I'll go buy a bag of perennial or an annual or bag of minerals. I think if you're doing something, it's better than nothing. But like I know for here in Ohio, the beans, like soybeans, are huge, but then there's a period of time in August they'll start turning yellow. They
Once
won't
they
touch
turn yellow, they won't touch
they
them.
won't
Nope.
touch them. You'll see the deer absolutely disappear for like 3 weeks, and then they're hammering them again when they're dry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
No,
just
that's
depends
yeah.
on it depends on the location, the farm and honestly what the deer are doing because I don't know from year to year it's here anyways where I'm hunting. I mean, like season before last there was a soybean field, so it'd been 2 years ago, and there was activity all over it all the time when it was green. They're all in there and but then I've seen that same field where they're not in there for whatever reason. So it's just
Yeah.
I don't have a good way to nail that down.
I know a lot of
I'd
outfitters
say
and guides that use like so they'll have corn, bean, and then a lot of the edge rows and stuff, they'll plant really big clover because it's really sweet for the deer. It replenishes itself. It gives you a little shooting barrier around it. And the deer just tend to love it, and it quenches their thirst as well. So that's definitely something that I've seen work pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cheap, pretty universally able to be used crop, and that's like clover. I don't think you can go wrong with it. It really is. I have some out back
Yeah.
right now. And it's funny because the way I built this behind the shop here, I'll have to show you guys sometime. So I've got like it's a downgrade. It's a steep hill, it goes down, but then it's flat, and there's a big creek bottom, and it's tight, woods everywhere. So what I did is I pushed. Speaking of travel funnel routes, I pushed from construction, all the tops of the trees all the way to the back, and I shut off their access to the middle, so they have to come in the sides. And so it worked out perfectly because now that they won't walk through that brush pile because they can't. They have to come around the sides, and it's right where I want them to come with a wind in the plot. And they've got like a strip of clover come down the middle, and every night those deer come out, they're in that clover every night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say something for like people to remember that are watching this is it's also about like what do you, like how much money do you have, right? So um like beans and corn and your grains and stuff like that. I mean, it's if I could have one thing, if I could hunt over one thing, 100% it'd be corn, because I mean, you can't give me another crop that you can manipulate deer movement like you can with corn.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just go in
if
and
you
weed
want deer,
whack
if
it wherever
yeah,
you want them to go.
yeah, exactly, right. We can't bait here in Missouri, but you go in and you brush hog a crap ton of corn, you know what I mean? Or somebody comes in and harvests corn, whatever's left behind to your picket. I mean, you can hunt over that stuff, those big open fields. But that's fine and dandy, but if you look at what corn is, the price of corn, I mean, you're going to spend to plant a big cornfield or a big bean field. I mean, you're looking at a couple $1,000s probably. I mean, in all honesty, you probably are.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of guys don't have that, you know what I mean, to drop on in time. I mean, you think about the time that it takes to plant beans or to plant corn
Oh yeah.
and whatnot,
Let
and
alone the equipment.
machine,
Yeah.
machinery, diesel. I
Fertilizer,
mean, that's what
water.
I'm saying. So by the time by the time you get in and all, I mean, you got a couple $1,000s in this stuff, and a lot of people don't have the time for that, or they honestly just don't want to spend it. Right? They just want to go out and feel like they're doing something. So in that token, I would say just kind of knowing your ballpark that you're in. Brassicas are a great thing. I mean, you can get brassicas to grow in dang near anywhere. I mean, we don't have great topsoil down here, and I can get brassicas to grow down here if you just kind of plant it right. So, I think just also identifying, the area you live, how much money do you really want to put towards this stuff? Because like I said, at the end of the day, it can get pretty pricey. So, and a lot of people don't know that. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, it's just corn. Like just go buy some corn, throw it in the ground, and
Yeah.
next thing you know, it's growing, and it's not really how it works. So
Yeah, I feel pretty lucky because like I mean, I feel like you guys have it a little bit harder because I mean, one, Ohio, there's a lot of hunters. I mean, I know that for a fact. And then not only that, but it seems like people are less likely to let you hunt over their green or their soybean fields, corn fields. Like people are less likely to let you hunt in the Midwestern or even like Eastern states, I feel like. But man, you go out to like Western Nebraska and like you don't even have to barely knock on a door and someone says, "Yep, go ahead, like go shoot them all." Like no one cares. So I feel pretty
Well, the
lucky
crop
that
damage out there is
yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's like, but that's the thing too is like out there you don't have bow hunters because no one wants to waste their time. Like
yeah.
basically they feel like they're wasting their time. Like yeah, you'll have a lot of rifle hunters stuff like that, but um, so when you tell someone that you're a bow hunter, they kind of laugh sometimes. They're like, "Yeah, okay, good luck." And so I feel pretty lucky that I mean I know we're talking like early season and planting food plots and stuff like that, but man, like
Yeah.
out here, you just I guess it's just something you don't experience. So to listen to that kind of stuff, like, and here's the other thing too, is like, listen, like I grew up in Southwest Iowa, like that's prime plant food plots, corn, soybean area, like that.
Yep.
That is prime.
That's what they
But
do.
that was not a thing. Like food plots were not a thing when I was growing up. Like you
You
just
didn't need
didn't.
them.
Yeah, you just didn't see it. You
Yeah.
didn't see it. And so out here in Nebraska and like where I like to hunt out west, it's to us out here, a food plot is a Milo field because those deer love Milo. They love hiding in it. They love eating it. They love everything about it. So to us, if we find a Milo field, a jackpot, like you're just waiting to see antlers moving around out there. And, 80% of the time you will see a buck. It might not be a shooter, but you're going to see a buck in there. So that's what we look for. I guess if I could say one thing about Nebraska is just Milo fields and, uh, you're normally going to see a lot of pheasants, a lot of grouse,
Nice.
some turkeys, but yeah. So I don't know.
then
Yeah,
there's
no,
the
it's not-
states. Then
ahead.
there's the states that you can bait, right? Like Paul, you said that you can bait in Virginia, right? Or maybe
They got rid of that 2 years ago.
Okay.
So
Jerks.
now it's off season. I know, jerks.
Bunch of
I know they
haters.
can in
Uh,
Ohio. I know they can in Ohio.
You
I
can
mean,
in
that's a-
Ohio, you can in
Another thing.
Kentucky, certain parts of Pennsylvania under certain landowner jurisdictions you can.
Kansas.
Kansas.
Yeah,
Kansas.
there's states out there you can. And I know it got taken away here because of CWD. We are allowed to mineral outside of the season, but same thing, like you said earlier, it's got to be like 2 weeks or something. There can't be anything evident on the ground and whatnot. But I mean, it's for the baiting states, not only, not for the point of you just walk into a place and you just put a bag of corn or whatever and you sit over it and you hope something comes and eventually something will. But, what's the difference of me going on the edge of a cornfield and putting a mineral block or, Cedric going out there with his weed whacker or a brush hog and mowing down a quarter of the field and sitting a stand over it? Like there's no difference, right? I am against the, you go out in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, and you drop 200 pounds of corn and, you just sit over it. It's like, well, that's not natural. It's like at least put some sort of effort into it if you're going to do that. But um, also, I think on private lands, like you should be able to do what you want to do, right? I mean, I'm a big proponent of that. If you're a landowner and you have a couple hundred acres or 1,000 acres, whatever it is, and you want to mineral your deer during antler growth season to give them the best potential to be big, why shouldn't you be able to do that? But hey, I'm not a lawmaker. I don't make the rules. I just follow them. So that's my opinion on that. But I know one thing we do. We have two farms up in upstate New York, outside of Binghamton, and my wife's family. We have a guy that manages it for us, and we spend a lot of time in. We'll plant alfalfa first. So that first cut of alfalfa leaves, 3-4 inches. So the deer love that all during the fall, right? And then right after that, we'll go into planting in with that sugar beets and turnips. So this way, as soon as it freezes up there, I mean, they get to be about this big, and the deer just absolutely love it. So if I got an acre of sugar beets and turnips frozen, that's basically sugar for them. How's that any different than a mineral block or a bag of corn strewn throughout?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't make the rules, but you're allowed to do that. So we follow it, we do it, and it works out pretty well. Um, but yeah, I
Thankfully,
mean that's a good combination of planting, because especially in the states where it gets cold pretty quickly, once you get into November, you have that late growth happening.
I think the struggle that I see is like in Ohio, we're allowed to bait not for turkey but for deer. And I don't
Wouldn't they
under
say like corn hurts the turkeys? Like they can't digest it or something?
something like
Like
that.
that's
Yeah,
like
the
that's why it's
gizzard.
hurting the turkey population because their gizzard can't digest or break down a whole corn kernel. I
Well, it's a
Something.
heard
good thing.
somewhere.
It's a
Well,
good thing I
the
shot my
hull.
bird then because he was full of corn. So I don't know what that's about,
It must
but
be the
yeah.
must be the hull or something. But I
Yeah,
guess
I don't know what it is.
I guess what I understand is, so you've got like what we do. I never put corn out at all. We can, but there's so many crop fields here early season, beans and corn. Like I wait till it gets cold and it snows and there's nowhere else to go for food. And you're feeding the deer. And I'm not always out there hunting, so I'll throw 50 pounds out and I might hunt, 2-3 weeks or something over that corn. And at night the deer come in, they're getting feed and they're not having to browse for any green stuff under the snow and they're surviving. So I feel like there's a moderation there we could have as a hunting community between lawmakers
Yeah.
and us. There's moderation there. Hey, hunters, what do you think? Hey, lawmakers, what do you want to see? Hey, let's come together. That makes sense to me.
Well, and everybody thinks that's just pour a corn pile out and you're going to shoot 170, and it's not how it works. So you know deer, I mean mature deer, old deer, they come in there and you miss on them or anything like that, they're going to remember that for the next corn pile and whatnot. I mean,
Oh, they're not
just
dumb.
like just like anything else, man. So there's a lot of people that say you shouldn't bait because it's just so easy, you just put it out and the next thing you're shooting all these deer and whatnot. You still have to be a woodsman. You still have to know where. I mean, I could go out right now and just go dump some corn somewhere. It doesn't mean deer are going to come to it. Like they still have to cross their path.
Raccoons
So,
will.
yeah, right, that's no,
Yeah.
no lie.
That's no
lie.
joke. One thing I am for, and I wish we had here, and I would like to see more in the States, and I think in Arkansas you could do it. I'd like to see baited bear seasons be available. And I know there's a lot of pro for that in Virginia because the population has just taken off. Um, and the way the terroir is here, it's very difficult to hunt them. And it's been managed in Canada forever, Arkansas forever, Maine for a while. I'm an advocate of baited bear seasons, and I wish that we would all look a little bit harder into that and the effects of that because I think a lot more good happens from it because you get to have the animal in front of you. You get to see whether it's a boar or a sow, and you get to see if there's cubs coming around or whatnot. You have that added time to make a decision where on the fly, sometimes you don't know. And I see a ton, and I butcher game during the season for people. And I see a ton of bear come around that, they're 100 pounds or they're 80 pounds or they're a cub or they're, a small female. And it's just like, well, first of all, you don't know. It's the first one you ever saw. Second of all, it's like if you had time to judge that bear, you'd realize it's no bigger than your dog at home. And you probably wouldn't have made that choice. So I think there are pros to some of this, and it's just my opinion. Like I say, anything on this cast is my opinion. Don't take it as rule or law or anything. But I think that's something that can get expanded on. I mean, they're not getting any of those, CWD, HD. That's not happening in the bear population. Yeah, they have trichinosis. That's always been known. It's been in pigs and everything. You freeze it for 6 months and your meat's good, and cook it really well. You're not worried about that. So, I think there's something to be said for that, personally, just to
Yeah.
expand on
We
the.
need to schedule the Bowman bear hunt.
I like it.
Yeah, let's go. I actually don't know what's going on this year. We had that one that I showed you guys in pictures. That was a pretty decent boar. And I haven't seen anything since. And like I said, we're in between the two mountains here, and we have that creek along the bottom. So, and it's all laurel facing, facing west. So they just love to linger through there all the time. And there's just been that one so far. So it's been a little slow start. And I've noticed a lot of people around here have said the same thing. They've either seen like one or two little ones out, but they haven't seen a ton. So, I don't know. There's been a lot of development around the area as well where I live. So that has kind of skewed a lot of the animal where they live, the populations, how they're crossing the roads, etc. And we don't live in a populated area by any means, but it's getting more populated every year. So that's kind of stirring things up. So I wonder if that's got something to do with it currently.
Yeah, I would say it probably does. I mean, I've looked in heavily to going up to Alberta to hunt black bears with my buddy Mitch, and golly, man, like some of the rules that he says they have up there are just weird. Like you can bait in this area, but you can't bait in this area, and then you can only bait for 2 weeks before the season. And there's just a lot of real hinky rules. Like, I mean, you have to have your barrels out of there right after bear season. You can't leave them there for any amount of time. And, he got really lucky. I think maybe you guys have seen it, but he killed a 400-pound color phase black bear up there.
Yeah,
Just
that was awesome.
yeah, just an absolute tank. And, yeah, like, but so like going over some of these rules, I'm like, man, like, I don't even know where to start. He's like,
Well, don't go there.
an outfitter. He's like, you just don't do it unless you go to an outfitter. He's like, I could help you, but he said even then, he goes, I'm lucky that I even kill a bear because he's like, you just
Yeah.
don't know. And
You
so,
want a bear, you come to me. We got the property in New York that's the biggest wetlands in New York State, and they breed there coming out of Pennsylvania. And my buddy owns property right on the edge of that, and we have a bunch of property on the edge of that, and we just get hanks of bears all the time. If you want to go bear hunting, you just give me a call. We'll go bear hunting.
Note
man,
taken.
Good deal, I guess.
I'm in.
So, all right, gentlemen. Well, this has been a pretty good cast here. I appreciate your time. I know we all look a little tired. Hopefully, our YouTube fans will forgive us on this one for the view. But no, I think we had some good stuff on here. I appreciate it. Once again, please look out for episode 3 that dropped today. So when this goes live, it'll probably be a week from now. So Monday, June 5th, it dropped. So take a look at that. Please like it, follow us, give us a 5-star rating. We're on iTunes, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Spotify, all the big platforms, and even the little ones that you want to search for your podcasts on. Please share it with your friends and family and post it on social and tag us with anything. We are going to start having guests on the podcast. We started off with just kind of speaking about what we feel and kind of our mentality. And like I said earlier, none of this is law, none of it is rules and regulations or anything like that. It's just what we feel and what we think as everyday hunters and people that work in the industry and what we would like to see as well of our opinions on things. So we're going to start having some guests on so we can get some more feedback on that. So if you want to be a guest on the podcast, please reach out. You could reach out to us at the Bowman Podcast on Facebook, and we can go from there, and we'll happily set up some time. But thank you all for today. It's been a great show, and we'll see you soon.